quarters. September corn down 1 1/4 at 387 1/2, and December down 1 1/4 at 394 3/4. May soybeans down 3 1/2 at 905 3/4. July down 3 3/4 at 919 1/4. August down 3 1/4 at 925 1/2, and November beans down 3 1/2 at 939. May wheat down 5 1/2 at 456 3/4. Soybean meal down $1 a ton at 309.80. April live cattle down 77 at 128.32. June up 65 at 122.57. March feeder cattle up 32 at 141.65. April down 62 cents at 146.30. April lean hogs up 222 at 71.02. May up 177 at 79.67. I'm Dwayne Murley.
When agriculture is big, does that mean it's bad? I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Terry Fleck with the Center for Food Integrity says skepticism about large farming operations continues to grow as the size and scale of farming grows.
Big agriculture just doesn't feel right to a lot of consumers, and when they hear of large farms, they really wonder whether or not large farming has their best interest at heart.
Fleck says there's a perception that profit is the overriding motive on large farms.
And that large just means we are just about efficiencies and making more money at the expense of the earth.
A recent CFI survey shows 65% of consumers are hungry for more information about ag. But Fleck says it's important to separate the farmer from the farm.
Americans have a great deal of trust in farmers. What they just don't like is farming. So let's separate those two and let's talk about the values of the farmer and then how that relates to farming.
Fleck says their research shows that connecting with consumers on what's important to them, their values, is 3 to 5 times more important to earning trust than simply spewing facts and figures. He says slow and steady progress is being made.
There's more consumers today that feel the food system is moving in the right direction, so we're making incremental improvements in that.
I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you will feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
A look at 2019 and how it's shaping up for pork producers. Hello, I'm Megan Grebner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield. A livestock economist says pork producers won't see big profits in 2019. In fact, break even is a more attainable goal. In this Managing for Profit, Steve Meyer takes a look at the factors that will have an impact on producer profitability this year. We'll find out more on Brownfield right after this.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Here's farmer and landowner John Prue.
We purchased the land about 3 years ago, and there was an old farmstead on there with trees. We were going to clear the land so we could farm through it. We thought we knew where the pipe was, so we didn't call to get it located. The work on our property led to the damage of a light crude pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
Livestock economist Steve Meyer says 2019 won't be anything for pork producers to write home about.
It's going to be a break-even year, I think, for the average producer. The really good producers probably make $10 a head. The good story, of course, is costs are low. $63 and change in our model, and that represents probably the best 20% of producers out there because we've had great crops the last few years. Had a very good 2018 crop. South America is harvesting a pretty good crop now. We're kind of up to our eyeballs in corn and soybeans. We're 2 bad crops away from having high-priced grain, so that leaves us in a good shape. The futures have traded off some. The China premium went into the market too quickly last September and October. It's come out of the market probably too quickly over the winter time. We still think that the second half of the year could be pretty good, but our fundamental models still only have hog prices up in the low to mid 70s for the summer. But on a cost, if you're at $65, $68 on cost, that's still profitable.
Unless, he tells Brownfield, China has to turn to the U.S. for pork, especially as their battle with African swine fever continues.
This thing's probably going to remain endemic in China. The structure of their industry does not lend itself to getting this cleaned up. And now it's in Vietnam. It's probably in Thailand already. And so this is just, it's just going to be there in Asia. And if that's the case, then they're going to have a very difficult time raising enough pork to feed a large Chinese population that are pork eaters. And they're going to eat less pork in the future. I think that's a dead certainty. They're probably going to import more pork in order to satisfy some of that.
Meyer says continuing to develop relationships with some of those smaller trading partners is also key to profitability.
And you get the barriers taken down in Australia, and you get the barriers down in South Africa, and you go to Argentina, who they eat a lot of meat already, mainly in the form of beef, and you try to do a deal there so that you open that. There's not a lot of low-hanging fruit yet. So this is where, to get results, it really takes work. And I think the NPPC's done an admirable job of that, of getting these markets open. And that's the big reason Korea is such a star, is we did a Korea free trade, U.S. free trade agreement, and those tariffs are going down every year. And, they will go to zero eventually, and we'll have complete access there. That's what we need elsewhere, other places.
I'm Megan Grebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
Thrifty White Community Health Corner. Immunizations are not just for kids. Adults should keep their vaccinations up to date as well. Thrifty White Pharmacy's certified immunization pharmacists can vaccinate against shingles, measles, pneumonia, and more. Staying up to date on your vaccines can keep you healthy and prevent diseases from affecting your family and your community. Visit your local Thrifty White Pharmacy. Our knowledgeable pharmacy staff is here to help determine which vaccines are right for you.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
You don't have bad luck. The reason that bad things happen to you is because you're a dumbass.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
See, I can't get any respect in my own radio program, AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Joining me now is Ira Shivers. How you doing, Ira?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Well, I'm doing real good. I brought Ira on today because we have an announcement. You want to make the announcement here, Ira?
Oh, you make the announcement.
Oh, well, I'll make the announcement. Ira and I are going to have a podcast featuring, not surprisingly, me and Ira. And we'll talk about whatever the hell we want.
Yes, sir.
I keep wanting to call it Fat Dog, but or Fat Dogs. There we go. We can do all that stuff. But, we'll be talking about what's happening in, it'll be similar to what I try to do on this radio program. I try to talk about national state issues as it relates to Fort Dodge, or how people in Fort Dodge or Webster County, our immediate area, how these things affect us, and then how we react to them and what it means for us and all those sort of things. The difference will be, Ira and I will be doing it, and there might be some profanity,
just a little bit.
That's not allowed on a commercial radio.
We'll keep it respectful, though.
It's going to be respectful, and I think we're intelligent, so we're going to. Well, I think we are. We'll see what people say in a couple of months.
See what
they say. Say what people say in a couple of months. One of the things I want to discuss, and I bring it up every now and then, is Donald Preston.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's kind of a relative of yours.
Yes, sir.
And he was killed 3-4 years ago.
It was about 3 years ago.
It wasn't a car accident. He was murdered.
Right.
Thrown out in the field north of town.
Yes,
That's
sir.
no way to treat somebody. That
There's no way to
bothers me.
treat nobody, no human. You ain't treat animals like that.
No, you don't. And it's still nothing's been done about
Nothing's been done.
it. You know, I brought that up actually to some people in here with the NAACP here a while ago.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess you were in the room.
Yes, I was.
And I said, what about this?
Mhm.
You know, what about this? So I'm going to ask the question again to the listening audience. What about this?
What about
How do
it?
we let this happen?
How do we let it happen? How do we fix it? Like somebody knows something. And
Oh,
it's
you know it
time.
is.
And it's time for people to stop being afraid, stop worrying about what the next person thinks about you, and do the right thing. Because it could have been their child, their dad, their uncle, their brother.
And it might be.
And it might be.
You got somebody running around capable of that kind of stuff.
No doubt.
That's brutality.
That
boy.
is very brutal.
That's brutal. And it shows a shocking disregard for
Yes, it
human life.
does.
So, and I understand now that we've said that, we're asking people to, talk
Mhm.
about a brutal person with no
Right.
respect for human life.
Right.
But I'm sure there's ways to do this
There's a lot
in
of ways.
anonymity.
A lot of ways.
Yeah. And I
You know.
believe the Crime Stoppers even offer money
Yes, they have.
for information.
I believe the family has too.
Yeah. Oh, the family has?
The family has offered money. And of course you get the bits and pieces with, this person gonna tell you this story and this story and this story, but tell this story to the proper people that need to hear it.
Police.
The police. Stop being afraid of the police. Stop being afraid of what your friends are gonna say about you, and do the right thing.
You think there's a lot of fear of the police in among black people in Fort Dunn?
I wouldn't say it's fear as so much just don't have the knowledge to know right from wrong. Because
What are you talking about now? Who doesn't know right from wrong?
let's start with the youth.
All right.
Okay. And it depends on how you was brought up, what type of morals you were taught.
Mhm.
So if your parents is going around saying, screw the police, this, that, and the other, well, of course the kids is gonna say the same thing and had the same thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't be like that. They should be telling their children how to obey the law, respect the law, help others in need. Because like we said earlier, it could be someone in their family, and who's to say that it won't be? So bottom line, people just need to, it boils down to doing the right thing. And it's been 3 years, and if I'm wrong, forgive me, but enough is enough. We need to have this murder solved, just like we also need to have the murder solved of Lori Alexander.
Yeah, see, that's the real creepy part
Yes,
about
it
this.
is.
Lori Alexander was Don Preston's girlfriend,
Yes.
or they were involved.
Right.
Maybe they weren't involved at the moment.
Right.
But what, 2-3 weeks later, she's
2,
dead?
3, yeah, I don't know. I think it was like a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was about a week later. She turns up dead.
These are executions. These are murders. These are hits.
executions.
That's
Very
right.
much so. Executions. And like you said, it takes somebody with balls to do that. And if they're doing it, then they've been doing this for some time, because it take a lot to take somebody's life and just walk around like ain't nothing ever happened. So that's where we at right now with this, and justice needs to be served. If they can't do it, reach out. And I'm not showing or trying to say any disrespect to our local law enforcement, but if you need help, just get the help. Let's get these murders solved, and let's bring Fort Dodge back.
This ain't like shoplifting.
Not at all. Not at all. It ain't shoplifting. It ain't jaywalking. This is a murder, an
Yeah.
execution,
And probably,
one, and then a week later another one.
Probably the same person did them both. too.
I'm betting it is. I'm betting that
Or-
it is.
or
And
the
if it
same
ain't,
group, I
was gonna
can't
say,
say.
if it ain't the same person, it's somebody in a group, and they've done this before. So
Yeah. Well, they got everybody scared, apparently.
they do. You would think
and that's no way to go through life.
it ain't.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ones that are scared, that do know what went on, are addicts themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But what if it was you? You'd want your buddy, to go let the law enforcement know, hey, I know who did it, or I know who might know who did it. It's just like I don't get it myself.
Mhm.
You know, really, I really don't.
Okay, I got a question to ask you.
Okay.
There are crimes committed, some bad ones
Mm-hmm.
in our town.
Yeah.
And it's usually a black person that's a victim.
Right.
But local law enforcement tells me they're very frustrated because they can't get any cooperation from
Yeah.
black people.
True.
I don't get that.
I don't either. I mean, at a point I did, but as I grew up,
What did you get about it when you were younger?
because you got a few, you know, the law enforcement itself in a whole is a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got a few bad apples, and them few bad apples in that bunch makes the entire bunch look bad. So you got a couple of young black men walking up and down the street doing whatever they're doing, and one of these bad apples see these individuals and stops them and harasses them, and then they do it the next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. They grow tired of that harassment. So that puts a bad taste in their mouth as far as dealing with law enforcement. But I think if the police were to weed out them bad apples, and I'm pretty sure they know which ones have been having the most complaints of harassment, it would kind of lighten the mood a little bit as far as getting cooperation from the community, to show them, like, you know, like make a statement like, okay, we understand that these officers have been harassing you, and we're going to put a stop to it. Make a point, make a statement. You do that, I guarantee you will start getting cooperation from the black community.
Well, but you got to admit that there are some who won't cooperate.
Oh yeah.
And I don't get that. And I mean, they just won't cooperate because they want to handle it in their own neighborhood.
And that they do, but street justice ain't justice.
Well, that's kind of what I think.
That's revenge.
Well, yeah, it is.
That's revenge. And those ones that, you know, want to act hardcore and, you know, I'm a thug or I'm a gangster and I don't need to help the police. That's not true, because if the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be beating down the police door.
Yeah, they would.
Know, to get some kind of justice. It's all a front, you know, the thug part. And there ain't no real thugs in Fort Dodge. You know, not in my opinion.
Mm.
If it was, I just don't believe there is.
Mhm.
So let's get something going where we can get these murders solved and get Fort Dodge back on the right path where we was before all this weird shit started happening.
This is a family show.
Oops, sorry.
Public radio station there. Clean it up over there.
First time people apologize.
Well, yeah, you know, I don't want to. I don't want to. We had to address these things, but I don't want to make a whole big deal out of it.
Definitely,
because it makes, the more we talk about it, I don't want people to get the idea that every black person in town is some kind of is involved in something.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. I mean, because there's plenty of shifty white dudes,
There's
and I know
there's
them.
plenty of shifty all type of people, and if anybody took anything I said wrong, I apologize. But the point I'm trying to make is,
what are you apologizing for?
Just in case somebody might have took what I said the wrong way as far as black men.
Oh,
you know, as me being a black man, and
have
me
no
speaking,
fear, they will.
No, just me speaking on it. You know, I want to see justice. I mean, that's my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not just for him, but for Lori Alexander. You know, and for Wimp, and for the two young black men that got shot here, just not a block away from y'all, in y'all alley. Matter of fact,
right over there.
Yeah, I mean this. It's enough is enough, man.
That really is.
I mean, think about it. We never had this many murders in a short span of time in years, at least 20 years. I mean, you think back a couple years ago, it was like a murder every week, you know, or somebody, it was bad.
It was.
And Fort Dodge was never like that. Never like that. And I think we just need to get back to where we were.
Why is it like that now?
I really don't know. I think it's the drugs.
I do too. I think drugs drove some people crazy.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. But where do they go? You know, for help? I mean, you can't just go to a rehab and like, hey, I need help. You know, there's you almost got to commit a crime, you know, just to get some kind of help, and that's just ridiculous. You know.
I have a very serious question for you.
Okay.
What do you think of white people in cornrows?
White people in cornrows?
I'm opposed.
Okay. So they're wearing cornrow braids?
Yes, I am. And talking like they're from Georgia and they're from East Lawn. You know what I mean?
Stop it. That's what I'm going to tell them. Stop it.
Absolutely. Stop it today.
You weren't raised like that.
That's right.
Be who you are. Stop trying to be somebody else.
That's right.
Because you got, if you're going to take the good, you got to take the bad with it.
That's right.
And they don't want the bad that come with that.
Rachel Dolezal was a flake. Understand it. Don't try to be Rachel. She got busted by saying a whole bunch. Oh yeah, I'm black. I'm black. Oh man. Shut up.
Shut up.
White girl from Montana, the whitest state in the union.
She wearing them too, huh?
Oh, well, she was. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Rachel Dolezal. She was a high official in Spokane, Washington. High official in the Spokane NAACP, and she was representing as a black woman. She had her hair, like
cornrowed.
No, not cornrowed, but she had it permed, so it looked like a black person's hair.
Right.
And she was always a little bit on the tan side, but she said, "Oh yeah, I'm African American. I'm Caucasian. I'm Indian. I'm all this wonderful multicultural stew."
Another Elizabeth Warren.
Oh yeah, something like that. And finally, her parents, who are whiter than white, are sitting out in Montana, and they're seeing her on TV. You know, and they finally said, she's none of these things. She's not a black person. No, she was telling people her father was black, and she had a picture of herself taken with this older black man.
Okay.
Her arms around each other like this is dad.
Right.
And her dad put a picture of himself on there. He's just some old Montana guy, cowboy. He said, "No, I'm her dad." And all of a sudden, it's all blown up.
So now we got another wannabe.
Yeah. So that's how wannabe it gets. A good. I mentioned my friend from Spokane, Washington, many times. His wife was a professor of sociology at Eastern Washington University in Spokane, and Rachel Dolezal, the supposed black woman, was on campus. And my friend's wife told me this woman was arrogant in her assertion of her blackness and had no time for anybody who wasn't down with the whole black experience like she was.
Really?
Yeah. She's whiter than me, and that's white. These people are just insane. Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, I don't like why I don't get it. I mean, it's not gonna make you black.
No, it's
cornrow your hair.
Bruce Jenner might think he's Caitlyn Jenner.
right.
But there's some things you just can't do.
Some things you just
Rachel,
can't do.
you just can't go that far.
No, you can't. So press the hair, take the perm out.
Yeah, really. Be who the hell you are.
Be who you are. That's who
Thank
God
you very
made
much.
you.
That's right. And
that's who God made you to be. Anybody else rocking cornrows that shouldn't be?
Yeah, that's right. If they are, stop it.
If you're rocking cornrows and you shouldn't be rocking them, call us at the station.
Call us at the station now, 515-955-1400. White people, you look ridiculous wearing those cornrows. And black people, I don't know how in the hell you comb your hair wearing those cornrows.
They pat it.
They pat it.
You got to pat it. When it itch, you can't scratch it.
You got to pat it.
You got to pat it.
See, I wouldn't go for that. What's wrong with your hair? Oh, this is in my cultural tradition. Were you from Nigeria?
Right.
Because I could have sworn you grew up over there.
You grew up 2 blocks away from me. But a lot of them, the hair changes and
right.
It's a fashion.
We had to get off that murder stuff.
It's a fashion statement.
It is.
But
yeah,
it's only for those who should wear it.
That's right.
We
got by the era of black people concholating their hair and frying their hair.
Definitely.
So we got by that. So okay, white people, you can lay off the cornrows too. the black people got over the concollated stuff.
Definitely.
And so we can now, let's just be who the hell we are.
Yeah, just be us.
That's not that difficult.
It's more fun being yourself than it is somebody else.
Oh, man, I guess. I have an assertion for you here. We're going to take it up in our podcast.
Okay.
White liberals are always bleeding all over black people like, oh, God, I'm down with the cause, and I'm here to assist you in advancing the cause of equality and civil rights. And I don't think middle class or upper middle class white people know what the hell they're talking about.
All right.
Well, my point is that if there's one thing that unites some white people and some black people, it's poverty.
True.
It's that they live in the same neighborhood a lot. Back when Coleman Edition and in
the flats.
In the flats. Oh my God! Did you say flats? I mean, that's just a terrible thing to call the flats anymore.
That's yeah. That's
there were football games, baseball games, all those things down in that area, and nobody knew the difference. From what I understand, I wasn't one of the ones that grew down there.
Okay.
I wasn't one of those people. But the idea that any group of white people can sit on high and say, well, okay, black people, I'm here for you, is a little annoying. Does that strike you as as truth or what?
No. I think they do it for recognition.
I mean, what was I say? Yeah, they do it for recognition. Mainly they're trying to get votes.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they truly, really want to help you. They want to help you at that point in time. And in that point in time is a vote for them. And then they're figuring, okay, well, we can get this person on our side, and then they're going to bring their family and their family friends, so forth and so on. And then when you're doing that to a community, as far as black folks, stop. Like,
yeah.
For what? There's people that actually truly need help. And if you're in that position to help someone, help them because you truly want to do it, not because you want their vote. I mean, to say that to me, and I'm knowing I'm never going to see this person again, I'd vote for the other guy.
Yeah. I'm having a little problem with this Beto O'Rourke,
The animated dude.
The animated dude. Yeah, the animated dude. Yeah. Beto is a Hispanic nickname. But O'Rourke's full name is Robert Francis O'Rourke. He's about as Irish Catholic as you can get.
Right.
And I know because I'm an Irish Catholic.
Okay.
But he's running around peddling this Beto stuff. I know he's from El Paso, Texas, and the majority of people in El Paso are Hispanic people.
True.
But get over yourself.
Get over yourself.
What
I don't get is how a lot of these politicians like Beto, Elizabeth Warren, there's this whole, I'm part this, I'm part that.
Yeah.
Like, what is that going to do?
Well, they think it gives them some sort of authority. Really. It's like Rachel Dolezal. Well, I'm black, so I get to walk around Eastern Washington University and talk stuff.
True.
But I'm not black, but I'm not going to tell anybody.
Right.
And she's on TV crying, can I self-identify? Well, okay. Look at YouTube right now, 1400 KVFD, and I'm going to declare myself black. Okay, there it is. Bang! How did that work? Do you see any difference in me and all, or do I look like an old white dude?
You look like my brother.
There you
She's just from another mother.
They're just from another mother. There we go. Yes. Well,
stop it, Beto.
Stop it, Beto. Stop trying to be somebody else and
be yourself.
Oh yeah, and Elizabeth Trump. Trump really messed you up. I mean, he's been calling you Pocahontas for a long time,
and she ran with it literally.
Well, and you deserve it. You're not an Indian. You're not an American Indian woman at all
whatsoever.
All right, AM 1400 KVFD. Good afternoon. You're on the air, real quick.
Yeah, you want to identify as a black woman, right?
No, I don't want to identify as a black woman. Well, wait a minute. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you on that one. Thank you very much. AM 1400. I'd never have to worry about a date then, would I?
Right.
I can date myself.
Right.
4:00 in the afternoon. We'll get back to you on that podcast. Irish Rivers has been here. Jerry Schnurr is next. KVFD for Dodge Island.
It's everything digital on the Kim Komando Show every Saturday from 11 to 2 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
Floodwaters are still rising. Lisa Brady, Fox News. The lingering effects in parts of the Midwest from last week's bomb cyclone of heavy snow and rain. At least 3 deaths blamed on the flooding, thousands evacuating. This Nebraska native went back to do what he could.
I'm from Fremont, so I wanted to help out. My parents are actually stranded here in Omaha, and just want to do anything we could to help out.
There have been hundreds of rooftop rescues by helicopter. Missouri also hard hit. The Missouri River, already breaching levees, is still rising in some areas. North Dakota's largest city, Fargo, just declaring an emergency as the Red River rises. They're hoping to fill 1 million sandbags. Terrorism still not ruled out as a possible motive in the mass shooting on a tram in the Dutch city of Utrecht earlier today. 3 people killed, 5 wounded. Officials say the suspect, captured hours after the attack, was known to justice authorities and has a criminal record. Recent studies calling into question whether a small dose of aspirin each day can really help prevent heart attacks. Fox's Jonathan Seri.
For people who do have heart disease, continuing to take that small daily dose of aspirin can reduce your chances of suffering a second heart attack or clot-related stroke. But in earlier years, doctors had been hoping that aspirin could also be used as preventive medicine for older adults with no history of heart disease.
Instead, some studies are finding an increased risk of suffering a major hemorrhage.
So the American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association have released new guidelines saying aspirin should be limited to people at the highest risk of cardiovascular disease and a very low risk of bleeding.
The new guidelines also emphasizing that lifestyle changes, including regular exercise and a healthy diet, could lower the risk for seniors with no prior heart disease. This is Fox News.
This is Peter on his motorcycle. And this is Peter off his motorcycle.
Please move your paper off my desk. Thank you.
On his motorcycle.
I feel so alive!
Off his motorcycle.
I feel like we covered that already, so...
On.
Wow! Look at the ocean!
Off.
Look at this article I found about urban planning.
You're better on your bike. Progressive helps keep you on it. Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
Please be done.
over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
New Zealand's prime minister pledging reforms to gun laws after the mass shooting at 2 mosques that left 50 dead last week. Meantime, President Trump accusing the media of trying to blame him.
After the New Zealand mass shooter described President Trump in his anti-immigrant manifesto as a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose, reaction from senior counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway.
This president condemns hate and evil and bigotry, and we will continue to do so.
President Trump on Twitter writing, "The fake news media is working overtime to blame me for the horrible attack in New Zealand. They will have to work very hard to prove that one. So ridiculous," he wrote. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
Both the FAA and Boeing are defending the approval process for the 737 MAX jets involved in 2 recent disasters. This after a Wall Street Journal report that the Justice Department and the Transportation Department's Inspector General are investigating. Investigators in France say so far they see similarities between last week's crash in Ethiopia and another last fall in Indonesia as they analyze the black boxes. Yet another cold case apparently solved with the help of a genealogy website.
Police in Ozark, Alabama have gone 20 years without being able to find who killed 2 teenage girls, leaving their bodies in the trunk of a car. But DNA taken from the crime scene is now matched to a sample collected by one of those services that offers to tell people their ethnic makeup if they submit their DNA. Now a 45-year-old man named Coley McCraney is charged with their murders. More often, cold cases are being re-examined against a treasure trove of DNA samples collected by genealogy services. The most infamous might be the Golden State Killer from California. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Wall Street starts the week on a positive note. The Dow up 65 points. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. It was announced on Monday that Shopko will be closing all of its remaining stores, including the ones in Humboldt and Clarion. The company said in a press release that the company was unable to find a buyer for its go-forward business as a going concern. The press release continued by saying that the company will wind down its retail operations starting this week. Shopko closed its doors in Webster City back in December. A proposed change in how a federal block grant for mental health services is distributed in Iowa drew support and objections on Monday during a public hearing at the Iowa Capitol. About $5 million has been sent this year to 25 community mental health centers. The new plan would use that federal money to help set up mental health services for children in Iowa. Cynthia Steidel Bishop is CEO of a nonprofit that provides mental health services in 11 counties.
First, I want to say that I fully support creating a children's mental health system. What I don't support is taking money from one mental health system to fund another mental health system.
Andrew Allen, CEO of Youth Shelter Services, is a member of the state board created to develop a children's mental health system in Iowa. Allen says while he'd like to discuss new funding, he supports the funding shift.
Too often, kids get smaller versions of what was created for adults. Kids are not simply short adults. Kids are distinctly different and need specialty programs and benefit from specialty providers focused on them.
Liz Cox, executive director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, says improving the children's mental health system is critical to Iowa's well-being, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the 25 community mental health centers.
These agencies are the only resources in many of our counties in our state, especially rural counties, and those communities rely heavily on their services to get the sort of treatment that they need. And not only do they need to preserve their funding, they need additional funding so they can expand services to children.
The proposal is included in a larger bill that spells out how several federal block grants are to be distributed in Iowa. The bill will be considered by a House subcommittee on Tuesday. A murder charge has been filed against a man accused of setting a Cedar Rapids apartment fire. Lynn County District Court records say an amended criminal complaint with the new charge was filed Friday against 24-year-old Dallas Tolis of Cedar Rapids. He's also charged with arson and 2 counts of assault. His attorney did not immediately return a call Monday from the Associated Press. Investigators say Tullis set a fire on February 28th that destroyed the apartment complex and injured some tenants, including Tullis. One of them was 65-year-old Stephen Balvin, who died days later. His death prompted the new charge against Tullis. A May trial has been scheduled for a Northeast Iowa man accused of using a corn rake to stab his wife while killing her. Delaware County District Court records say 42-year-old Todd Mullis last week entered a written plea of not guilty to a charge of first-degree murder. He was arrested last month. His trial is set to begin May 13th. The Delaware County Sheriff's Office says an autopsy showed Amy Mullis died after receiving injuries that include multiple stab wounds to her back with a corn rake. Authorities initially reported that the 39-year-old woman had been fatally injured in a fall at her farm about 4 miles northwest of Earlville. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon with highs around 42. West winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy again tonight, lows level off around 26. Highs around 48 tomorrow, cloudy. Highs around 49 Wednesday under mainly sunny skies. 53 Thursday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently it's 43.
In today's economy, it just makes sense to plan ahead. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, pre-planning your funeral arrangements can save you money. By planning ahead, you can secure your arrangements at today's prices, no matter when our services are needed. Pre-planning your funeral is one of the most thoughtful things you can do for your family. Call us for details. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
From the Fox Business Network, Boeing, a drag on the Dow as investigators continue probing the recent crash of the 737 MAX. One of the biggest buys in the payment sector, Fidelity National Information Services. It's up after announcing it would purchase WorldPay, another online payment processor, for about $25 billion. JP Morgan is bullish on workers, saying it'll spend $350 million over the next 5 years to train workers for the jobs of the future, specifically that it will invest in a variety of initiatives, including a development program for community college presidents and new research. And a prominent economist has died. Alan Kruger of Princeton University served in the Clinton and Obama administrations. He died over the weekend. He was 58. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Lillian Wu.
Hey, my friend's retail store was the victim of IoT password theft.
Yep. Cyber criminals are taking over security cameras, payment systems, and other IoT devices by exploiting vulnerabilities.
What if they target us and our dispersed network?
We're secured with Barracuda. We have advanced firewalls for our sites, enhanced security for our cloud infrastructure, and total email protection.
Such a relief.
Protect your business at Barracuda.com. Barracuda, your journey secured.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
A little sexy, but more disturbing.
Michael Devine and Jerry Schnurr now at AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, that's right. We're on the air with good old cousin Jerbo here, AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Jerry Schnurr is a local attorney and, of course, a longtime contributor to the program. How are you, Jerry?
I'm good today, Mike. How are you?
Well, I'm real good myself. This is the anniversary of a 1963 Supreme Court decision that Jerry and I have talked about several times. Gideon versus Wainwright. Can you you want to describe Gideon versus Wainwright there, Jerry?
Sure. Gideon was kind of a low-level crook. He broke in, was accused of breaking into a was it a bowling alley or a grocery store?
Well, I think it was a bowling alley, something like that.
And anyways, in stealing some beer and cigarettes, he was arrested, taken in, convicted without a lawyer. He challenged it, wrote his own appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, saying his rights were violated under the Constitution. He's entitled to a lawyer to represent him in the process and didn't have that. The Supreme Court agreed with him and sent it back. He did have then the advantage of a lawyer being appointed to him if he couldn't afford one. And he was, I believe he was then acquitted of the charges. But it wasn't a big crime, but it was a big case in that it established that people charged by the state of committing a crime have the right to have a lawyer representing them. And if they can't afford one, the state will pay to provide a lawyer for them. And that's at all important stages of the case and the investigation.
Now, at the time, Florida did allow for legal representation at state expense, but only for a capital crime.
Right.
And this guy broke into the Bay Harbor pool room in Panama City, Florida. He smashed a cigarette machine, record player, trying to get money, in essence. And Clarence Earl Gideon was the man. He was arrested at 5:30 in the morning, leaving with a bottle of wine and money in his pockets, the change in his pockets. So I'm going to guess that Clarence Earl Gideon was guilty of the crime. However, when he got to court, the court told him, and I quote, "Mr. Gideon, I'm sorry, but I cannot appoint counsel to represent you in this case under the laws of the state of Florida. The only time the court can appoint counsel to represent a defendant is when a person is charged with a capital offense. I'm sorry, I will have to deny your request." And Gideon was actually sent to jail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this was not a young man. He was certainly not an educated man. He was kind of a sullen no account.
Yeah.
But somehow, in some way, he found the wherewithal to petition the Supreme Court for the right to counsel. Mm-hmm. Now, this has been a popular decision. I'm glad we live under this decision. There is no precedent for this decision at the time. There is nothing explicitly in the Constitution that allows a defendant to demand the state pay for counsel. How did the court, do you believe, arrive at this decision?
Sure. So there is one of the amendments, the Bill of Rights, and I can't remember if it's the 5th or 6th Amendment, says that criminal defendants are entitled to be represented by an attorney. It doesn't say when. It doesn't say when that attaches. It doesn't define what particular crimes it attaches, but it does say that if you're charged with a crime, you're entitled to be represented by an attorney. That's one of your constitutional rights. And so, what in trying to comply with that, the state of Florida said, the state will pay for an attorney to represent you if you cannot afford an attorney, but only in cases where the state is looking to impose the death penalty. Otherwise, you're on your own, and if you can't afford an attorney, you don't necessarily get one. And so the court looked at this and said, as a matter of due process, again under the 14th Amendment, that amendment, that the Fifth or Sixth Amendment that guarantees the right to counsel, that applies to states, because without the 14th Amendment, then that amendment wouldn't necessarily apply towards state action or state law. So under the 14th Amendment, which guarantees that that the state must provide due process of law, that then meant that the Fifth or the Sixth Amendment, I wish I knew which one for sure, but there's the guarantee of counsel applies. The Fifth Amendment is the right of due process that the federal applies to the federal government. 14th Amendment is basically the same language, only says it applies to the states too. And so that's how you get to that requirement. And so they said that statute doesn't go far enough. And so, Mr. Gideon, you're entitled to an attorney at state's expense if you cannot afford one. Now, you have to go through a process here in Iowa. You have to fill out a financial affidavit, and they do some checking on employment and so forth, and to double check to make sure that you actually are of such economic means or lack of means that you can't afford an attorney before they will appoint one.
Now, believe it or not, this case has origins in the famous Scottsboro Boys case from 1931. I hope most people understand that reference. If you do not, you don't know your history of our country very well. The Scottsboro Boys were 9 black young men, very young men, late teens for the most part. They were accused of raping 2 white women, which was a very serious offense in Alabama in 1931. I mean, they could have been killed on the spot. Mm-hmm. They were not, however, they were treated roughly. The Supreme Court, to make a long story short, isolated these young men. They did not allow them counsel. They did not even allow them time to prepare their own defense. And one of them, Roy White, who was 13 years old, was sentenced to death in 3 days. Mm-hmm. This is not the way we do things in this part of the world, and I'm glad. Now, these defendants were held under a military guard to protect them from a mob which wanted to lynch them. Right. This is my mother was born in 1931. This is not a medieval story from another time in another country. And the Alabama Supreme Court ruled 7-2 that the trial that these young men had was fair. The Supreme Court disagreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what they ruled on was limited, by the way. In this particular case, Powell versus Alabama, Powell, of course, was one of the young men, Ozzie Powell, is that in capital cases, counsel was required. So what they did in Gideon was kind of broaden it a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, this.
Yeah.
The court stepped into some our country was parts of our country in the not too long ago past were brutal, lawless places.
Right. Right.
And you'd have to describe, if you have to bring in the military to guard 9 young men.
Yes.
That's serious business.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and it didn't just happen in Alabama. It happened in other parts of the country too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so this was really an important decision. In Iowa, you're entitled to an attorney, and if you can't afford one, they will appoint an attorney to represent you, unless it's what they call a simple misdemeanor, which is the lowest level of crime. So above that, you are entitled to an attorney, and you're entitled to jury trials at all levels. Even the simple misdemeanor in front of a magistrate, you can ask for a jury. You have to do so within certain limited number of days, and once you do, then you can have a jury try your case, even if it's a simple misdemeanor. But beyond a simple misdemeanor, you get up to a serious misdemeanor, then an aggravated misdemeanor, and then your felonies. You're entitled to have an attorney represent you during the proceedings and be present at all of the hearings and important matters, which would include if there was ever an attempt to interrogate you or ask you questions, and you tell the police from the very beginning, I don't want to talk unless my attorney's there. Until I have a chance to talk to my attorney, then all conversation between you and the law enforcement officers has to stop, and they cannot initiate any more communication with you.
In the Powell versus Alabama case, all of these young men, there were 9, only the 13-year-old, his trial took a little bit longer. But the other 9 men, 1-day trial.
Yeah.
1-day trial.
It can go a lot faster when you don't have an attorney fighting on the other side for you. So
the Supreme Court in this case found that there was a violation of due process, of the due process clause. That wasn't the case with Gideon.
Right.
It was an entirely different story.
Yeah.
They did determine that an indigent defendant must be provided counsel. Mm-hmm. And where were you saying again? That was justified?
That was in, I think it was the Sixth Amendment. If not, it was the Fifth Amendment. I think the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution says that you're entitled to counsel. The Seventh Amendment is the right to a jury trial. But I think it's the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution provides that. I just wish I remembered for certain which one it was. One of those Bill of Rights guarantees it. And I just can't remember which one specifically, but it is in there. And
that's okay.
And the right to a trial by jury of your peers. It has the right to confront your accusers and to cross-examine. Those are all constitutional rights, so that you have the right. That gives you the right then to, when you're charged, to see who the witnesses are going to be that testify against you. You have the right to find out what information they're relying upon to file the charges. You have the right to find out, get a summary of their statements and testimony and get their statements, and then you have the right to cross-examine them and sit down face-to-face with them and have your lawyer then cross-examine them and test their stories for accuracy and honesty and so forth. And that's just a basic constitutional right of our entire system.
Well, again, this Gideon decision is an extension of the Powell versus Alabama.
Right.
Gideon had to act as his own counsel and was sent to prison. The person of Gideon, Clarence Gideon, has always amazed me. Again, a sullen no account. But in his prison cell, writing with pencil and prison stationery, he appealed to the United States Supreme Court. He got their attention with his reasoned argument. Maybe not the most articulate argument, but it was reasoned and changed history. I mean, is this a great country or what?
Yeah, yeah, it sure is. And then that was one of the decisions then that led to Miranda, the Miranda decision, Miranda versus Arizona in 1966, where we get the Miranda rights then. And Gideon's, the right recognized in Gideon, then became one of those rights that they read you under your Miranda rights. And if you happen to be arrested and brought into custody. And that's an important point to remember is that these rights rise once you're brought into custody by law enforcement. And they don't necessarily arise when you're just standing around on the street talking to somebody and you're free to come or go as you please. But once you are no longer free and you are in custody, then you have these rights, and they attach at that point in time. And the Constitution then provides protection against the power of the state. That's where the idea that we've talked about before, one of the ways in which the Constitution limits the power of the state and protects the rights of the individual from the power and overuse of the power of the state.
By the way, Gideon got a lawyer, was retried, and was found not guilty in an hour.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And we're coming up, if we haven't, another case we've talked about recently, the Tinker versus Des Moines case.
Oh, yeah, that's
I think that anniversary was here it either has just happened or will happen soon, that decision.
It has happened. I saw on the news that the Tinkers, who were teenagers in the 1960s, my generation, I was shocked how old they got. I've remained young, of course.
That's right.
But no, that was a famous student free speech case in Des Moines,
right,
where a couple of teenagers wanted to wear black armbands in protest of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Well, I remember a couple of kids in our class tried that, and I'll tell you, the male teachers and administrators at the time weren't going for that at all.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court then ruled that because they were kids doesn't mean they had zero free speech rights, and that the presence of a black armband wouldn't be necessarily that disruptive.
Yeah.
Because that's what the administrators were hanging their hats on. This was disruptive.
Yeah.
Actually, what they meant, it was offensive to them and to others. And I understand that.
Yep.
But do they have the right to do it or not? That's no question.
Yeah. There's speech can be offensive to a number of people, and maybe even most people, but it's still the right to use that speech and to speak, especially if it's in political protest. Political speech is always held at the highest level of protection by the court, by the Constitution, and so that in that case has kind of paved the way over the years, 50 years now, for student protests at high schools and schools throughout the country. And, we see that time and time again where our young people are raising protests and trying to raise issues that are important to them. So that's the future of our country.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of exciting to watch these kids engage in these issues and take some ownership in trying to change the world and do what they think is going to be what they can to make the world a better place in their eyes.
All right. Another important anniversary, though, a very important anniversary, and again, one that we shouldn't forget. By the way, Gideon died a few years later. It was of no importance his whole life. That's why I find him so fascinating.
Yeah.
I just find him so fascinating. He never did another thing in his life. He never did anything before that. But in this particular case, he made history.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
It's a little sexy, but more disturbing.
Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
I'm broadcasting live, more or less. 429 at AM 1400. KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. News, weather, the obituary is coming up at AM 1400 KVFD.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. It was announced on Monday that Shopko will be closing all of its remaining stores, including the ones in Humboldt and Clarion. The company said in a press release that the company was unable to find a buyer for its go-forward business as a going concern. The press release continued by saying that the company will wind down its retail operations starting this week. Shopko closed its doors in Webster City back in December. A proposed change in how a federal block grant for mental health services is distributed in Iowa drew support and objections on Monday during a public hearing at the Iowa Capitol. About $5 million has been sent this year to 25 community mental health centers. The new plan would use that federal money to help set up mental health services for children in Iowa. Cynthia Steidel Bishop is CEO of a nonprofit that provides mental health services in 11 counties.
First, I want to say that I fully support creating a children's mental health system. What I don't support is taking money from one mental health system to fund another mental health system.
Andrew Allen, CEO of Youth Shelter Services, is a member of the state board created to develop a children's mental health system in Iowa. Allen says while he'd like to discuss new funding, he supports the funding shift.
Too often, kids get smaller versions of what was created for adults. Kids are not simply short adults. Kids are distinctly different and need specialty programs and benefit from specialty providers focused on them.
Liz Cox, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, says improving the children's mental health system is critical to Iowa's well-being, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the 25 community mental health centers.
These agencies are the only resources in many of our counties in our state, especially rural counties, and those communities rely heavily on their services to get the sort of treatment that they need. And not only do they need to preserve their funding, they need additional funding so they can expand services to children.
The proposal is included in a larger bill that spells out how several federal block grants are to be distributed in Iowa. The bill will be considered by a House subcommittee on Tuesday. A murder charge has been filed against a man accused of setting a Cedar Rapids apartment fire. Lynn County District Court records say an amended criminal complaint with the new charge was filed Friday against 24-year-old Dallas Tolis of Cedar Rapids. He's also charged with arson and 2 counts of assault. His attorney did not immediately return a call Monday from the Associated Press. Investigators say Tullis set a fire on February 28th that destroyed the apartment complex and injured some tenants, including Tullis. One of them was 65-year-old Stephen Balvin, who died days later. His death prompted the new charge against Tullis. A May trial has been scheduled for a Northeast Iowa man accused of using a corn rake to stab his wife while killing her. Delaware County District Court records say 42-year-old Todd Mullis last week entered a written plea of not guilty to a charge of first-degree murder. He was arrested last month. His trial is set to begin May 13th. The Delaware County Sheriff's Office says an autopsy showed Amy Mullis died after receiving injuries that include multiple stab wounds to her back with a corn rake. Authorities initially reported that the 39-year-old woman had been fatally injured in a fall at her farm about 4 miles northwest of Earlville. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon with highs around 42. West winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy again tonight, lows level off around 26. Highs around 48 tomorrow, cloudy. Highs around 49 Wednesday under mainly sunny skies. 53 Thursday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently it's 43.
From the Fox Business Network, all Wall Street stocks kicking off the week in the green as investors look ahead to this week's meeting of Federal Reserve policymakers, with the Dow closing up 65 points, NASDAQ up 26, S&P 500 up 10. And it's the end of the line for Shopko, with the Wisconsin-based retail chain planning to close its remaining 120 department stores by mid-June. Shopko was unable to find a buyer for its business. In February, the retailer announced plans to close 250 stores. Shopko began with one store in Green Bay back in 1962. And the world's largest retailer is ending a popular program. Walmart stopping its Savings Catcher app program that automatically refunds customers for any price differences between the retailer and its competitors. The program will be discontinued nationwide beginning May 14th. The company said that it's ending the program because it already offers the lowest prices in most cases. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Hillary Barsky.
When weather hits, the right wiper blades make all the difference. That's when the Michelin Man is on your side, helping you see better and drive safer with new Michelin Premium Wiper Blades. Designed with exclusive SmartFlex technology or frameless beam design, Michelin blades flex to the curve of your windshield, giving you unparalleled, streak-free, long-lasting, all-season performance. So when the going gets tough, be ready with Michelin Premium Wiper Blades. It's a difference you can see. Available at Walmart and other fine retailers.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. May corn down 1 3/4 at 371.5. July down 1 1/2 at 380 3/4. September corn down 1 1/4 at 387.5, and December down 1 1/4 at 394 3/4. May soybeans down 3 1/2 at 905 3/4. July down 3 3/4 at 919 1/4. August down 3 1/4 at 925 1/2, and November beans down 3 1/2 at 939. May wheat down 5 1/2 at 456 3/4. Soybean meal down $1 a ton at 309.80. April live cattle down 77 at 128.32. June up 65 at 122.57. March feeder cattle up 32 at 141.65. April down 62 cents at 146.30. April lean hogs up 222 at 71.02. May up 177 at 79.67. I'm Dwayne Murley.
A look at 2019 and how it's shaping up for pork producers. Hello, I'm Megan Grebner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield. A livestock economist says pork producers won't see big profits in 2019. In fact, break even is a more attainable goal. In this Managing for Profit, Steve Meyer takes a look at the factors that will have an impact on producer profitability this year. We'll find out more on Brownfield right after this.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Here's farmer and landowner John Prue.
We purchased the land about 3 years ago, and there was an old farmstead on there with trees. We were going to clear the land so we could farm through it. We thought we knew where the pipe was, so we didn't call to get it located. The work on our property led to the damage of a light crude pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
Livestock economist Steve Meyer says 2019 won't be anything for pork producers to write home about.
It's going to be a break-even year, I think, for the average producer. The really good producers probably make $10 a head. The good story, of course, is costs are low. $63 and change in our model, and that represents probably the best 20% of producers out there, because we've had great crops the last few years. A very good 2018 crop. South America is harvesting a pretty good crop now. We're kind of up to our eyeballs in corn and soybeans. We're 2 bad crops away from having high-priced grain, so that leaves us in a good shape. The futures have traded off some. The China premium went into the market too quickly last September and October. It's come out of the market probably too quickly over the wintertime. We still think that the second half of the year could be pretty good, but our fundamental models still only have hog prices up in the low to mid 70s for the summer. But on a cost, if you're at $65, $68 on cost, that's still profitable.
Unless, he tells Brownfield, China has to turn to the U.S. for pork, especially as their battle with African swine fever continues.
This thing's probably going to remain endemic in China. The structure of their industry does not lend itself to getting this cleaned up. And now it's in Vietnam. It's probably in Thailand already. And so this is just, it's just going to be there in Asia. And if that's the case, then they're going to have a very good, difficult time raising enough pork to feed a large Chinese population that are pork eaters. And they're going to eat less pork in the future. I think that's a dead certainty. They're probably going to import more pork in order to satisfy some of that.
Meyer says continuing to develop relationships with some of those smaller trading partners is also key to profitability.
You get the barriers taken down in Australia, and you get the barriers down in South Africa, and you go to Argentina, who they eat a lot of meat already, and mainly in the form of beef, and you try to do a deal there so that you open that. There's not a lot of low-hanging fruit yet. So this is where, to get results, it really takes work. And I think the NPPC has done admirable job of that, of getting these markets open. And that's the big reason Korea is such a star, is we did a Korea free trade, U.S. free trade agreement, and those tariffs are going down every year. And, they will go to zero eventually, and we'll have complete access there. That's what we need elsewhere, other places.
I'm Megan Grebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
Take the worry out of winter with a winter weather advisor on KVFD, brought to you by Community Health Center Fort Dodge, offering dental, behavioral health, and general medical assistance for men, women, and children. They're committed to your well-being. Community Health Center. Get to know them. And Creative Cakes, making life sweet with espresso, lunch, gourmet cupcakes, and other sweet treats. Creative Cakes in the Crossroads Mall, Fort Dodge. They make life sweet. Listen for the winter weather advisor on the Voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. It's 4:40, 20 minutes before 5 o'clock. Obituaries this hour, brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. Lawrence Rosique has passed. Lawrence Rosique has died. Services for Mr. Rosique were this morning at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home here in Fort Dodge. They're at 923 First Avenue South. You can contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
There's no room for quitters on a job site. My Masterforce tools deliver power, performance, and durability that doesn't quit. Tools like my 20-volt cordless hammer drill. The brushless motor technology in that drill gives me up to 30% more power and 1.5 times the battery life. Professionals need tools they can rely on. Masterforce tools. Available at Menards.
Save 11% on everything now at Menards. Good through March 23rd. Savings are mail-in rebates. Some exclusions apply. See store for
Divine
details.
Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com. On Twitter at JMike1400.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. Of course, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we'll never be boring. Our guest once again today is economist Dr. Dean Stansel from Southern Methodist University and the O'Neill Center. How are you, Dean?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm terrific. The snow is melting. I'm just terrific. I couldn't be better. Please explain the O'Neill Center.
Oh, sure. The O'Neill Center for Global Markets and Freedom is in the Cox Business School at SMU in Dallas, and it was established by one of our alums, William O'Neill, who is the founder of Investors Business Daily newspaper. And we study the impact of competitive market forces on freedom and prosperity in the global economy. Our website is o'neillcenter.org, O-N-E-I-L.
Well, I'm going to assume that you and all economists everywhere are slightly aroused today over the thought of a new budget to look at. So, what catches your eye about this $4.7 trillion monster?
Oh, yeah. It's always like Christmas Day when you get the new catalog.
Boy, it is, isn't it?
President's budget proposal. That Michael, if you think about how the budget process works, it's basically a meaningless exercise in the sense that Congress holds the power to do whatever the heck they want.
Yes.
And even when the Congress is controlled by the same party, it's essentially a suggestion. But nevertheless, when there are major policy proposals in there, it's newsworthy, and it does kind of put some political pressure sometimes on Congress to act on those proposals. So this year's budget, in the lead up, it just came out earlier today, but in the lead up to it, some of the preview articles were saying, okay, it's going to be this 5% across the board cut in all the agencies. Turns out, well, it's 5% in most agencies, but not all. Of course, defense didn't get cut by 5%. They got, I think, a 5% increase. So there's not a lot there, honestly, and so if you look at some of the headlines on the budget talking about it calling for tough cuts, well, so if you go to, let's see, where is it? whitehouse.gov/OMB, like anyone's actually going to do this, but you could look at the actual proposal yourself, or your listeners could, and if you look at it's way at the end, table S1, the first table gives the budget totals, and what do you know? Outlays 2019, that's this current fiscal year, $4.529 trillion. 2020, $4.7 trillion. 2021, $4.9